every asset, every tile. He did all the music. He does all the like every pixel in that game, all the programming he did himself. And so, how impressive, that one person can do that. And then it's sold. I haven't looked at it recently. It's somewhere around 700,000 copies on Steam at $15 a pop. The That probably doesn't suck. Like, go Concerned Ape, man. Like that rocks. Total respect to him. Fun game, and amazing that he did all that as a one person project. And that's the start. I mean, you're going to see yet more and more of that coming up. Pretty nuts.
I agree. Yeah, I think indie games are gonna be where it's at within the next
Yeah,
few
I think also
years.
the line's going to blur, but you're going to see more like AAA folks who have done AAA games going and doing smaller projects because it is so much easier to do it now than it's ever been. Um, you look at indie games, and most of them, there's a pattern to a lot of indie games. It's like one person who obviously kicks butt because they just went and carried the game on their shoulder. And so usually you'll see a game that has like awesome design, but the guy is maybe an okay programmer, and maybe the art's like, well, it's a little sketch. The It's a little iffy. The ability to get a couple of people who are really talented and then go do that stuff right from scratch. It's never been stronger, like. And so it doesn't have to be just a one man thing. It can be like a 2-person thing or a 3-person or 4-person. Keeping it small, but then the tools are there to make you able to make a game a lot faster than like 3 or 4 years.
A viewer asks, Ron asks, what's your all-time
Oh
favorite game?
man, I would have to say XCOM the original. Oh
Oh,
god, that's such a
nice.
good game. The And I like XCOM too, actually. Or I like the newer XCOM, but there's something magical in that to me where it was so many kinds of gameplay blended together well. Like tactical combat was fun and cool, and like environments would blow up, which was super rare at the time. The fact you could build a base and you're like, oh, I built a base, that's cool. But then like aliens would invade it. Like spoiler alert for like the 1984 game or whenever that came out. Then the aliens invade your base. You're like, holy crap! I thought I was just building this thing as like a little tile game, and like, no, wait, it's for real. And the aliens are kicking my butt in my own base. Like, that was like mind blowing. And they did such a good job of telling the story within the gameplay. Like you find a little room where like they've been abducting cows, and then your researchers study it, and they find out, oh, here's why they've been abducting animals and stuff. And it's like that was just cool that they didn't smack you in the face with like huge chunks of story, but instead you discovered it by kind of naturally through gameplay. I loved all that. I loved all that. The And there's one thing I would love the new ones just as much, except for one thing, and to me, something brilliant they did in the design. Sid Meier did the same thing in Pirates. They did a really good job of having a little sim running their world where you'd like, when you're a noob, you'd see a little dot going across where there's a spaceship, and you'd be like, oh, I got to hunt that down. And it's a little scout ship, and like, ooh, there's an alien on it, you're stoked. And then you see another random dot later, and you attack it, and they're bigger ships and whatever. And then you see like a huge one, and it's like you fight it, and you can't even bring it down. But then later on, you learn to follow that ship, and it's a supply ship. And then it lands. You're like, woo! And you go jump and attack it. And now you take it with no damage to it because it had landed. And guess what? It's near a base. That's why it landed as a supply ship, because it's following a little sim pattern where now you can discover the base nearby it. And it's like that to me was brilliant because that design felt like just a random number generator as a player. It's like, oh, little small ship, little medium ship, a little bigger ship. But in actuality, there's a little sim running around the world, and you can figure it out and make sense of it. Like locate the enemy bases by the flight patterns of the ships as you got better radars and stuff. Um, that's really that's just cool. Like that's emergent gameplay right there when you discover that you should, hunt down the big ships by following the little ones and all that. And it's kind of surprised me no one's really doubled down on that kind of thing too much since then because that like world sim that gives you an interesting backdrop to the world just was so damn clever. What's your favorite game, by the way?
My favorite game of all time would either be Final
Mm,
Fantasy IV or The Secret of Mana.
yeah, good calls both. Good calls both. What lured you into them?
I love
Yeah.
RPGs, and I think Secret of Mana would I guess the reason I liked it was it had the RPG aspect of it, but also that really almost free
Yeah,
roaming type thing before that was
yeah.
around. Before everything had a sandbox that you could run around
Well,
in.
something they did that was so good is the areas having different uses where like you'd go and you pick up something else and you'd come back to an old area and you thought you knew it all, but now like, oh, there's a new hidden thing you can unlock. The just so good about doing that. Like overlaying multiple kinds of interesting content in one area really gives the world a sense of depth. And it takes pretty good design teams, I think, to pull that off.
Um, Another viewer asks, with the new hot topic being around the news
Mm.
lately, do you think Sony and Xbox will ever cross-platform play?
Yeah, so they've just started doing that now with like Rocket League, and there's a couple other games because both publishers held that really tight for a while. And it's interesting. I'm not sure if that means they think that PC is kind of a threat, and so therefore, or something be embraced, and maybe they can pull people out of PC gameplay, or pull maybe each thinks that you can get people from the other console onto theirs. Or I think it's a great thing for the industry. I mean, it's just better to have more people playing. Um, those consoles are so similar in their controllers. I don't see a massive advantage to one side or the other. Um, where there's actually some danger with that if you have PC playing versus console play because shooter controls. I prefer shooter controls in mouse and keyboard because of being able to find control of the mouse. Um, but I'll admit that I've had my ass kicked in the past by console players or people using a controller even on the PC because they grew up in the era of Halo. I was crunching when Halo came out, so I didn't get a chance to pick up like a first-person shooter via the Xbox controller. I missed that era, so I forever lag in that. But I'll tell you what's most embarrassing about that all is my wife is she did QA back in the '90s, and the so she did QA in Wing Commander. Great series with Star Citizen basically is a chunk of that team. Chris Roberts, did those back in that day, and so she can kick the crap out of me at any flight simulator. She did QA on it, and she doesn't really care about games. And so having your wife
That's
kick your ass
awesome.
at game, that's fine. I am secure in my manhood. Equity between the genders. However, having someone who doesn't really care about games kick your ass at games, that sucks. When you've like come to be like in the
Yeah.
games industry since you were 7, and your wife casually kicks your butt at it and doesn't care. Like that's yeah, that sucks. That really sucks. So, of all my lack of game skill regret, if I end up spending a year doing nothing but playing flight simulators, you'll know it's just so I can like earn back so she won't kick my butt in Star Citizen or something similar.
I think with like Rocket
Mm,
League, I think it brings good competition because there's always that
yeah,
rivalry between PC
yeah,
players and console players on who's a
yep,
better player. Whereas on a game like this, you can match up with
mm-hmm,
each other and you can get really good bragging rights when you beat somebody. So I think it's a good selling point really if you cross
yeah,
platform. Say like Rocket
absolutely.
League with Xbox and
Well,
PlayStation.
Rocket League plays so well on the controller. Like even when I play it on Steam and I use a controller to play it, the because it just handles so much better with that. You get much better control over it. The but they did such a good job with that game in terms of the simplicity of the gameplay for running around. You bump the ball in the goal like anyone can do it. And then you watch like Kronobi or some of those pro guys just fly through the air and triple flip and smack it in. You're like, damn, like I hit the boost button and nothing like that appears to happen. Like my car goes and smacks a wall or something. The I really respect the gameplay for such simple gameplay that they have that much depth of experience from newbie up to pro. Um, and in this era of things being on Twitch and going viral, like brilliant on their part. Like I'm not shocked that they sold so many copies of that because um, watching other people play it is so much fun. It makes you want to go in there and enjoy it yourself. And then having the cross-platform expands that to another level. I think it's a great move by them. Just like you're saying, I think it's a really great move to kind of expand that. Yet, and especially as the first game to do it, you're absolutely right. Feeding the rivalry of like, I have PC rocks. Oh no, I will crush you with my PS4 controller. Like that's a good vibe to tap into. That
Yeah.
makes a ton of sense.
A question I have is from about a month ago, maybe a little bit longer. Me and my friend, Pi, he's been a long time. A long
Mm-hmm.
time friend of mine. I was watching the stream, just, lying about. And this girl was playing Mega Man, really old
Mm-hmm.
game. And she was completely just lost as to where to go. And I'm like, how can you be lost? Because it's a side scroller. You either go left or you go right. So, and my friend took it the wrong way and challenged me to Mega Man duel. Mega Man 1 through 6. The first one to win with, get bragging rights. And he totally whooped me. No shame in that, but what's your opinion on the difficulty of games back then compared to games
Well,
now?
it's interesting because there was absolutely a time when games were quite hard, or they're made for infinite play, where you could play them on and on and on, and they got harder and harder until eventually you got defeated. The Pac-Man era for sure. And even those games eventually have been beaten by people entirely, where you play until the machine basically shorts out. The and then there's an era where games got easier and easier, where the games enforced saving and this kind of stuff because you didn't really have the technology to save very often, and so you had to have save points. That automatically made it harder. And then as games got more accessible, you saw a swing to making them easy, and especially if they were PVE, playing against the computer, then nobody wanted to lose. Everybody wanted to win. And so, hey, you'll do better if you make it so that everybody's winning your game. And I think what swung the pendulum back was, the highlight of PvP, esports kind of games in part because you lose half the time by default if you're playing against other players because somebody's got to lose. And so and if you're really good, then maybe you lose less, but that means someone else is losing more. Um, and I think that trained, a generation of gamers that it was kind of okay to have challenge because then you start seeing the Dark Souls and you start seeing the other games that pride themselves, Darkest Dungeon, and just being like hard, we're going to kick the crap out of you. And so there was a resurgence of that kind of games. I think both for the nostalgia value and then also for the pride value. And because those games are fun to watch, as you look at this swing of YouTubing and Twitch streaming and all those kinds of services, what's fun to watch? In part, it's people beating really hard games, harder than you can even do. And so I'm really not
Right.
surprised to see a swing back to harder games but in the Mega Man era, like you were saying, it's pretty damn hard then too. What's your thoughts on that?
I think, well, my friend Ty, like, I'm a big Destiny fan. I stream
Mm.
that a lot. And he hates Destiny. He hates Halo. He hates all those
Why does he
type of
hate them?
games. Not because they're
Mm-hmm.
shooters. Because he thinks it's, well, I don't usually play them. But when you get shot, you can
Mm.
regenerate health if you don't
Yeah.
die right away. And whereas, like on Mega Man, for instance, you get shot, that's it. Unless you pick up health. It doesn't feel like it's as much of a
Mm.
challenge when your character can hide and regenerate. Whereas on those games, you had to work to survive. So, I remember like a couple of years ago.